Welcome to Biblical Demand, and today our guest is Dr. Rosalind Picard, who's an inventor, engineer, scientist, and professor at MIT. And MIT, she's a full professor teaching and directing research at the Media Lab and serves as founding faculty chair for MindHandHeart. She wrote the book Affective Computing that outlines how to give machines the skills of emotional intelligence, and is a top-cited author in digital health and effective computing with over 300 peer-reviewed publications. She co-founded two companies that commercialized inventions from her and her MIT team. Empatica, providing the first AI smartwatch recognized by the FDA for monitoring seizures, and Affectiva, providing emotional AI software and services. Also, she has received one of the highest honors given to an engineer, elected to the National Academy of Engineering. It's a joy to have you, ma'am, on the Biblical Demand podcast.
Thank you. It's my honor to be here with you.
Great. So let's begin with your story. Tell us about yourself, that especially how did you come to know Jesus?
Yes, I grew up without any religion in a family that moved around a lot. So we met a lot of people from around the world, but I was a very proud child, a very good student, and I thought that religion was for people who didn't think. That was wrong. I was quite wrong. I've been quite wrong about a lot of things. But one of the things that opened my eyes was when I met thinking, smart, wonderful people who were Christians, and they challenged me to, well, first they were nice and they just invited me to church, but I didn't want to go to church. And then they said, well, maybe what matters most is not whether or not you go to church, but what you believe. Do you know what you believe? And they asked if I'd ever read the Bible. And I realized that, hey, this is the #1 best-selling book of all time. And no, I hadn't read it. And if I wanted to be the smart person I thought I was, then I should read the Bible. How can you be educated if you haven't read the Bible? So they suggested I start by reading Proverbs, which is, you can read one chapter a day for a month. It's very light reading. And I thought, sure, I'll read that, and I imagined it would be full of this fanciful stuff that I could easily, in my snobby, arrogant, self-centered way, look down upon. And as I started reading it, I realized, oh my, there's real wisdom in here. There is stuff for the most intellectual person to be challenged by, to really think about. And as I started to realize that, I realized I really need to read the whole Bible, which I then proceeded to do in a year, checking off boxes, how many books a day from the Old Testament, the New Testament. And as I did that quietly, without wanting to share it with anybody, I found myself being challenged and changed. I found myself starting to believe in God, which I did not want to believe in. So that worried me a little bit. So then I decided I need to study world religions and see if I study some other one, is it going to make me believe, or lead me to that predisposition? Maybe I'm just shaped by my culture, the Judeo-Christian culture in America. So I visited mosques and temples and met people from lots of different religious faiths. I studied it in school in an independent studies program that my high school let a certain number of students do some independent activities. And through quite a long process, I decided that the evidence for Christianity was very powerful and was greater than what I was finding in a lot of these other traditions, although I think all of these religious traditions are filled with great people and have lots of wonderful things to offer. I think, there are truths in a lot of these, but the truths of Christianity don't agree. But you can't just say they're all the same. They say things that are different from each other. So I felt challenged to believe in God. And then later, as I went to college, this took me many years. I was not a happy convert. I was sort of fighting it the whole time. But as I went to college and got more questions answered and learned more, not just about God, but about Jesus Christ, then I took another step, which was not just to allow that God might exist, but to allow that not only did Jesus exist historically and what he taught, is so incredible and inspiring and challenging, but I could also embrace Jesus in a different role, a role with a relationship, a role as who is in charge of my life. Is it me, or am I going to hand that off to someone who I think knows better than I do? And when I ran that experiment, I became a Christian. And that was a very big step, not an easy step, but the greatest step I've ever taken. Really made all the difference in my life.
Wow, that's so wonderful to hear your testimony that you were not born and brought up in a Christian home, but you've been challenged by Christians to to read and to go through the Bible. And once you started reading it, it took your interest, and you, as you said, that you started feeling changes in you, like the way you live your life. And later on, after going to college, you finally gave your life to Jesus, right? Yeah. So as you mentioned that in your story that the quest for truth led you to explore many world religions. You went through other religions as well. So I want to ask you, what is the difference you see between Christianity and other religions?
It's a little intimidating for me to answer this because I know you have some of the best theologians in the world on your podcast. So there are people who certainly know a lot more of the right words to use in describing these differences. But let me say some things just from, more a practitioner, not a theologian, and from a scientist. And let me separate them into things that I sort of see from the outside versus from the inside. From the outside, when I was looking at Christianity, and again, I didn't want to be religious. I wasn't looking for a religion. If anything, I was looking initially for justification to stay an atheist. I realized that Christianity was not just a belief, and it's not just blind faith. I thought, oh, this is just faith, right? Like without any evidence. Christianity actually has lots of historical evidence, and Christians promote scholarship, learning, openness to new data, openness to anthropological findings. If somebody could come up with a better explanation for the resurrection and prove that it didn't happen, Christians say Christianity would have to change, right? We couldn't, act the way we act if we had some different set of evidence or historical explanations that changed what we see. So there's a great emphasis on not just blind faith, but on scholarship and learning. In fact, because of that, there's also, a great set of practices that have come out of this and impacts that it has had. For example, Harvard University, this oldest university in the US, was founded by Christians, with the motto Veritas Christus et Ecclesiae, Latin for truth for Christ and the church. There's a lot of hospitals and other organizations doing good that were founded by Christians. There's a lot of science that was propelled by a belief that the world is organized, that God is a God of order and meaning and purpose, and that because there is a priori a God bringing meaning and purpose into this world, we scientists can expect to find order and meaning when we go looking for it. It's not all random and meaningless, with all meaning just concocted by us from, purposeless, randomless, undirected everything. So these implications and the way that they cause Christians to act in the world were a part of learning about and understanding Christianity. So that was sort of some ways I see differences as you look out. Another thing is that Christianity can be practiced in lots of different ways around the world. It is not a Western religion, an Eastern religion. It is Christ came for all. You don't have to dress a certain way, sing a certain way, worship a certain way at certain times, pointed in a certain direction. It is a gift for all people. And then the way that we worship or practice can be very different. You can wear a particular kind of clothing, you can sing a particular kind of music. All of that is secondary, right? That's not what the religion is. So I find all of these things very interesting. You don't have to read it in one language or follow a certain set of fixed practices. It's really about Jesus Christ. Who was he historically? What did he do? What does that mean? And what do I believe about it. So I'm tying together now some of the outside and the inside aspects of Christianity. Inside, when you start to grapple with what it actually teaches, it starts with we miss the mark, right? If here's the bullseye and we're aiming at the middle, we don't get it quite right. We're not perfect. We don't get it right every time. We are sinners. That's literally what that word means. And because we're a sinner and God is, beyond our comprehension. And I like to describe God as the, compared to science, this is like not only the greatest scientist, but the greatest author of our very ability to know anything, right? This is so far beyond our comprehension that when I actually start to try to fathom it, I can't speak. I would just be sitting here with my mouth open, being completely ineffective. So that is the true God, not some made up God, but the true God is so vastly beyond our ability to describe anything that we just can't even begin to approach that God on our own. And so Christianity describes how God and God's love for us came down in the person of Jesus Christ. Free gift. Didn't say, oh, Roz, if you believe in me, I'll come down and give you this gift. It's there. Everybody out there right now who doesn't even believe has this gift. You just have to accept it or reject it. And I rejected it for a long time. And now that I've accepted it, I'm like, wow, why didn't I accept it sooner? I mean, this is amazing. Absolutely mind-blowing. God, has made up for the fact that I can't hit the mark. And that sacrifice invites us into a relationship. And that relationship with God is the greatest relationship that exists. We humans can have amazing relationships with each other. You can have a little taste of that relationship with God here on earth. And we know how special that is, to be loved and known and to get knowledge and guidance and someone, who's there when you have a need that is beyond your ability, and that empowers you and inspires you and strengthens you and, just gives you reasons and purpose and meaning. And all of that comes in that relationship with God. So the invitation to, to experience that is so tremendous. I highly recommend it. So Christianity, compared to other religions, gives you that way to God. Acknowledging we're not good enough. There's no sacrifice I can make. There's no good deed I can do that's good enough. Although I want to do more good deeds, but no matter how much I miss the mark, we have all already been given this amazing gift.
Wow, truly, you explained it very well. I mean, you shared your experience, the way you came to Christianity, how Christianity differs. Like you mentioned that the historicity of Jesus, right? Jesus was not a myth. He has historical evidences. We have archaeological evidences. We have, and even many non-believers. I was talking with Dr. Gary Habermas, who is a resurrection specialist. When he says the non-Christians sources also gives us the proves that Jesus actually existed. So as you mentioned, also the historicity of Jesus and also the openness of Christianity for the beliefs, like as you mentioned, if someone comes with another argument, so they gonna think on it and they don't gonna oppose it, but they're gonna give answer through the biblical perspective. So also you mentioned that it is a personal encounter with God, the actual God. It was not a made up God or not in the idols, but actual personal God who speaks to you and who convicts you that you actually a sinner. You cannot do anything from your own, but you need someone who is greater than you. And Jesus is that way to get to the heaven, to get right with God, right? So that's wonderful to hear. So ma'am, moving on to the next question, that we keep on hearing debates and argument about that science oppose existence of God, right? So since you come from the scientific background, so does science actually oppose the existence of God?
Not at all. No, it's if God to you is a little made up fiction, like a little green man or something that walks around on clouds, or like a cosmic bellhop or Santa Claus or whatever, okay, then, science does not support that kind of God. But the God that I find in the Bible, that we find in the Bible, the one that we meet through Jesus Christ, that God is so far beyond our universe, our space and time, every force. We cannot begin to describe that. If we describe that God with science, it's just, oh my goodness. I mean, it would be like me, trying to describe the universe with, maybe 3 splotches of paint on a little piece of paper, right? There's just no comparison. And while science is incredible, I am a scientist. I love the tools of science. It's very powerful. It does give us great ways to know certain things. It is not the only way to know truth, right? That's scientism, believing that. We know that, take history, for example, right? It's a very different way of knowing what has happened in the past. We can't run the science experiments on history, right? We can use some scientific methods to make measurements, some methods to interview people and look at lots of sources. We have lots of good practices that come from science. We can apply those to the history of Jesus and what he did and who he was and who witnessed him and what impact that's had on people's lives. Great tools to use, right? But science absolutely does not oppose the existence of God. If anything, the order and magnificence that we see points to something much greater, and our ability to know and to reason beyond science points to something much greater.
Great. So according to you, science doesn't oppose because you can apply those scientific laws to what would I say? Those scientific laws indicate to some higher power, to higher intelligence, as you mentioned in your talk, that science is not disapproving. That is called scientism, as you were saying. Those who keep on disapproving, but as scientific laws and the scientific researches are always pointing to some higher power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, what we find is that there is meaning and order. I mean, I don't know if mathematicians listening, but when you go into abstract mathematical space, it's not just a bunch of random numbers floating around, right? There's beautiful structures and high dimensions and order, and they're interwoven. There's elegance and things that make a mathematician just have awe for how that mathematical world exists, right? And where did that come from? Why is it so beautiful and ordered? Why is there so much beauty and meaning and purpose?
Correct.
Where do these come from?
Yeah, absolutely correct. So since you come from science background, and you said also that you were like an atheist who doesn't believe in the existence of God, right, when you were young. So I want to ask, what is the difference you see now versus then, when you were an atheist, and now you're a theist in your work? In other words, has your faith changed your perspective on how you look at science and work now?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things reading the Bible taught me was, again, it's kind of hard to, it's easy when you're like a smart kid to think that you're so smart and other people aren't, and your world kind of revolves around you, and you can become very myopic, right? And you think that it's all about the things you're interested in. One of the things the Bible, did, while people talk about Christianity comforting people, and it is good for that, or it being a crutch, and it can support you. And I think we all are crippled. We all need a crutch. But what it also does is it afflicts the comfortable. One priest I know used to talk about Christianity comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. And for me, the Bible afflicted me a lot. It told me that I needed to love others as I love myself, that I need to not just love them, but I need to do unto others. I need to honor others as greater than myself. I need to, really, it actually taught me not just to act to be humble, but it actually humbled me. and humbles me to this day. And so it really got me out of myself. It got me to start to, not that I'm perfect at this, I still have a lot of room to improve, lots of room to improve. But it has taught me to look to others as greater than myself. And and it has also taught me that there is equal value and worth in all people, that I'm not better than anybody, that an able-bodied person is not better than a disabled person, that a person born to wealth is not better than a person born to poverty, that all are made in the image of God. God made all people with what is sometimes termed, the Latin term, the imago Dei. And this image of God is given to all of us, every living human being. And what it made me realize is that I can focus on people in society who others might be ignoring in my research. So instead of just working on, so big company wants to fund our work, they want to work with hip young people, they just want to work on the product that would, beef up the fitness of these people who already look like what everybody wants to be, right? Well, I could actually work with people who are seriously disabled, who are unable to speak, who have other challenges they face. They are of equal worth as that cool person that this company wants to feature in their ad. And what has been amazing is, as I've worked with these individuals, I have learned so much from them, much more than I've learned from my fellow colleagues who are, the people they want to feature in the ads, right? And in fact, we've all learned from them. Our worldviews have been changed. Our research has been changed. Our scientific insights have grown even more. We've also been able to build some things that help them, which help them to scale and do even more also. So whether it's a person with autism, a person with epilepsy, a person with, serious mood disorders, anxiety, depression, mental health challenges, whatever it is. And by the way, any of us could get epilepsy, right? Anybody with a healthy brain tomorrow could suddenly have a seizure. It can happen to anybody with a brain. Why do we stigmatize or treat people differently because they, have, some difference in functionality for a little while? So the Imago Dei says, we're all equal worth. And because that has informed my research, we've been able to benefit enormously in our science and our findings, working with and getting to know these wonderful people. And it has influenced and led to much better research.
Great. That's so wonderful to hear that Bible actually changed your perspective. Like, as you said, that we've been created in the image of God, as Bible speaks. And those principles you have applied in your work, that you treat people equally, you give them honor, and it taught you to be humble, not to act like humble, but to be humble. And that's really, I was also going through your website of Affectiva and Empatica. I was really amazed to see the work you guys are doing for the disabled, like epilepsy and autism, the people of seizures. So it's great to know that some Christian people are actually applying those biblical principles through technology and to bring betterment for the humanity. So this question I want to ask, it is related to the previous question also, that I personally see science as another way to worship God. Even there are many Christians who believe, like you also believe. Once I interviewed astrophysicist Dr. Hugh Ross, who just talks about astronomy, and he found those biblical teachings actually in the universe, that the universe expands, and he was really amazed at how Bible could talk about such things. Now science is discovering those things. And then I interviewed Dr. Saigard, who's a biochemist scientist. He also wrote a book, The Works of His Hand, and he also said that science is a still doxology, right? So I want to ask you that there are many Christians, but on the other hand, we have many Christians who oppose God, those who oppose, not God, those who oppose science. And they have many misconceptions about science. So what misconception do you think the religious or theist people have about science?
Yeah, I think there's several. One came out in the pandemic with all the controversy around masks. People were sort of mad because they heard one thing and then they heard another. It's as if they think science is like it is in grade school, where things have a right or wrong answer, and you look up the right answer in the back of the book. And why didn't they just tell us the right answer in the beginning? Why do they change the answer, right? So often people who are not scientists think that science just has this set of facts, and then they sometimes go a step further and think the facts do or don't support God, right? And if they don't support God, they think it's a threat to their faith. For example, I have some colleagues I work with who are roboticists. Some of them believe in God, and all of us recognize that the robot's very different from a human, right? But some of them talk like, oh, I'm just a machine, so therefore our robots will someday equal us, and we are nothing but what's in the machine, right? Well, it's fine to use the metaphor of a machine for a person, although I will disagree with it. I think we are much more than that. But to say that we are nothing but this material stuff or this machinery is not a scientific statement. That is more of an arrogant, I see everything and we're nothing but that statement, or it's just a misguided philosophical statement, but it's not a scientific statement. It's really a myopic statement. It's saying that, everything I can see is all there is. And of everything I can see, there's nothing but the stuff I can see. It's material stuff, the stuff I can measure. If you ask me, it shows a lack of imagination. It shows a lack of awareness that over time there have been things scientists couldn't see, and they later came to see them. And if they had said that's all there is, they would have been wrong. So we have to be a little bit more humble and say, our tools let us see these things. With these things, we can model these things, but we shouldn't say that's all there is, because we don't know. And in fact, I would like to think there's much more. I mean, science has always shown us there's more than what we can see. The Bible in 1 Corinthians 13, St. Paul writes about, for now we see as through a glass darkly, but then, in the next world, in the next adventure beyond this life, which most of the world believes in, and there's a lot of interesting evidence supporting. But then in this next life, we shall see face to face with God. Wow, holy cow. Like, can you imagine? I mean, we all usually have somebody we dream of meeting face to face. Well, when that's God, I'm not going to be able to say anything. And then we shall be known, then we shall know, even as we are fully known. Then maybe we will know all these things, or we will start to be able to see what we can't see now. So I believe this stuff is knowable. We are known. We can know it, it suggests. Will we see it on this side of the world? Well, let's learn all we can. Let's use science. It's an amazing tool. But to say that only the things we see and measure now is all there is, that's a really myopic or arrogant and limited point of view. And I would like to discourage scientists from thinking that, and people of religion who look at science and think that it can show us everything there is. It can't.
Yeah, true. That science cannot explain everything, because science and technology keeps on changing. But as a theist, we also believe in scientific things, like we're using the soaps, hand wash, sanitizers around. Those are scientific researches. But let's not, as you said, let's not limit ourselves on thinking. Science may prove something, like science has throughout the history has revealed what was already written in the religious books. Now science is unfolding those things. Like I was hearing, science tells you that how it happens, but religions teach you why it happens. So there is a sort of difference we can see. And so believers, the thieves, should not limit their mind, should not misconcept about science, that science only against religion. It is not, it's actually not, right? Yeah. So moving on to this, your personal experience and personal conviction, as we historically we see the evidences for the person of Christ and the resurrection of Christ. And then we see that Bible claims that Jesus is God in the human form. He was born out of Virgin Mary. Then he taught the world and to his disciples to preach the gospel. But sometimes the people have this this notion of doubt. Actually, can human be a god? So, in your personal experience, how do you see Jesus?
Words are a bit inadequate for me to describe Jesus. As I reflect on Jesus and what I've encountered through the Bible and through prayer, I just, I wish I could be more like Jesus. I am filled with just kind of overwhelmed with what he's done for all of us. I can't thank him enough. I just blessed beyond my wildest hopes and dreams that he's willing to be Lord of my life when I ask for that, right? I feel like his light shines into my dark corners and lights my path going forward, which is amazing to see ahead, to be given the gift of asking for foresight and guidance, and the light shines not on me, but on things that I wasn't seeing, and then I see. I understand his word was there in the beginning, and that's what we're given as a guide, and that's just amazing. When you experience love and joy, and you see Jesus as the source, it just it's indescribable. From Jesus, I've learned mercy and grace, and that is still something hard to put into practice. When I see Jesus make the first move for forgiveness, I'm inspired to do the same, even when it's hard. Sometimes it's easier to carry around pain, from a betrayal or suffering. And when I see that Jesus didn't wait for people to repent, Jesus forgave in the beginning, and if I could be more like that, how much better I could help make my little corner of the world. We could all make the world. I feel I do not deserve to know him, and yet he, by his grace, he is there. So how do I see Jesus? I cannot express enough gratitude, but I strongly have been changed by the privilege of catching glimpses and being, accepting the gift of being able to of being able to enter into a relationship with Jesus. I think that's just beyond words.
True, that's so beautiful. Beautifully, you shared your experience, like Jesus, the mercy of Jesus, the love of Jesus, and it teaches you to be more like him. And as you said, really, it is beyond the words we cannot describe, because this is more of experience than to put them into words, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I want to ask the last question. I ask this question to every guest, because this is the question I really want I want youngsters to listen. That in this internet age, what advice would you give to the young Christians or young believers, those who are influenced by culture, other worldviews, and other philosophies? So since you were saved in a very young age, so what advice would you give? How to just take the things from the world, or what things we should avoid and such?
Thanks for helping our youth. I think my brief words would be: there is a God. It is not you. One of my colleagues had a poster on her wall in this very powerful place: there is a God, and it is not you, with all these people who walked in and thought they were God. We are not God. I think it's important, perhaps, I think it may be the most important question you ask in your life. Who is Jesus Christ? Is Christianity true? And if you're unsure, learn, ask questions. And I also encourage you, when you get that information, to don't just think about it, but to run the practical personal experiment. Try living your life with taking yourself off the throne and putting Jesus Christ, God in flesh, on the throne. and see if it makes a difference. And I hope you find that it's an amazing, the greatest thing you ever did experience. And I think you'll find that you'll be very grateful that you tried that experiment.
Really, it's a very valuable advice that first believe there is a God, and if you have question, ask questions, and take help, and when you get answers, and then apply those things practically in your life. And it was really good advice, and I thank you for that. Thank you for that. And also I want to really thank you for taking out time to be on this podcast. It was my honor to have you.
That's my privilege and pleasure. Thank you for your efforts to help spread the gospel, spread the good news, and get people thinking during this challenging time. It's really important. Thank you.
Welcome.